Welcome to this explainer. I'm so thrilled you're here with us today. We're going to be diving into a topic that is literally the absolute bedrock of quality and manufacturing, the statistical basis of process control. Okay, let's jump right in. We are going to demystify the statistics behind process control, and we're going to do it by building up your understanding block by logical block. We'll stick to plain English, leave the heavy math at the door, and really focus on what these numbers actually tell you about your operations. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll quickly cover data types and sampling, finding the center, measuring the spread, distributions and the 3 sigma rule, and finally, trusting your measurement system.
All right, part 1, data types and sampling. Let's lay the foundation.
So before we can analyze anything, we've got to understand our raw materials, right? The world of data is basically divided into 2 camps. First, we have variables data. This is data you actually measure. It's a real number on a scale, like the exact weight of a tablet or the fill volume of a vial. It is incredibly rich information. Then you've got attribute data. This is data you judge, usually resulting in a simple category like pass or fail. Honestly, when you downgrade a specific measurement into just pass or fail, you are actively throwing valuable info right out the window. So always prefer variables data if you can get it, because it allows you to see a drift way before a process actually fails. Now, once we know our data type, we have to gather it. But here's a reality check. We have the population, which is every single unit the process will ever make, and we have the sample, the few units we actually get our hands on to measure. You can never, ever measure the entire population. It's just impossible. So the key takeaway here is that we have to rely on small, frequent, and truly representative samples to estimate how the whole system is performing. Moving right along to section 2, finding the center. Let's figure out how we summarize that data. Once you've got your sample, the very first question you're probably going to ask is, where is the middle of this data? The most common way to find that center is the mean. In plain English, you just add every single value together and then divide that total by how many values you had. Think of it like the physical balance point on a seesaw. But because it uses absolutely every value, it's pretty sensitive. A single crazy extreme outlier, yeah, that's going to drag the mean right toward it.
Let's look at a really practical example. Say we have a fictional company, Meridian Therapeutics, and they make a 500 milligram tablet. We grab a sample of 5 tablets. We add their weights up, divide by 5, and boom, we get a mean of 498.96 milligrams. Super simple, very effective, and it uses all the info from those 5 tablets.
But wait, what if we want to ignore those wild extreme outliers? That is exactly where the median comes in. To find the median, you just line all your values up in order, from smallest to largest, and pick the one sitting right smack in the middle. Half the data is above it, half is below it. It is incredibly robust, It doesn't care how ridiculously far away the extreme values are, it only cares about the order. So let's apply that to our 5 Meridian tablets. We sort them out from lightest to heaviest. Since we've got 5 tablets, the middle value is our third one. That value is 498.9 milligrams. Notice how it's slightly different from our mean of 498.96. The mean and median are giving us slightly different pictures of where our center actually sits. All right, section 3, measuring the spread. Let's figure out just how wide our data really is. You see, knowing the center is really only half the battle. We also absolutely need to know how much our process fluctuates. I mean, a mean of 500 milligrams tells us nothing about whether our tablets vary by 1 single milligram or 50. The easiest way to measure the spread is the range. You just take the largest value and subtract the smallest value. It's a breeze to calculate right there on the shop floor. But there's a big catch. It completely ignores every single piece of data sitting between those 2 extreme edges. It totally wastes information. To actually use all our information, we need to measure how far every single value deviates from the mean. But if we just added those deviations up, the pluses and minuses would perfectly cancel each other out to 0. That doesn't help us. So to fix that little math problem, we square each deviation. To get rid of the minus signs, add them all up and divide by 1 less than our sample size. This gives us the variance. It's mathematically brilliant, but practically, it's kind of confusing. Because if we measured in milligrams, our variance is in squared milligrams. And honestly, nobody can picture a squared milligram. And this, my friends, illustrates exactly why we need the standard deviation. To fix our weird unit problem, we simply take the square root of the variance. That's it. That puts us right back into our original, understandable units. The standard deviation is just a typical distance from the center. It's a real, concrete number you can actually picture in your head. For our 5 meridian tablets, if we run that quick calculation, our standard deviation comes out to exactly 2.035 milligrams. Now, do me a favor and keep that concept in your back pocket, because this standard deviation is exactly what we mean when we talk about sigma. Which brings us to Section 4, Distributions and 3 sigma. It's time to map the process. Now that we have our center and our spread, we can finally map our process out visually. A distribution is really just a picture. It shows which values a process produces and how often it produces them. You build it by sorting your data into bins and stacking them right up. And very often, both in nature and in manufacturing, this stacks up into a nice, symmetric, bell-shaped mound. You probably know it as the famous normal curve. When your process follows that normal bell curve, we get to apply the empirical rule, which makes the math incredibly predictable. Check this out. About 68% of your data will fall within 1 standard deviation, or 1 sigma, of the mean. 95% will fall within 2 sigma, and a massive 99.7% of your data will fall within 3 sigma. What does this mean for us? It means that any point sitting beyond 3 sigma is a genuinely rare event. We're talking something that happens only about 3 times in 1,000. So that brings us to a really vital question. Why exactly 3 sigma? Why has the entire global manufacturing world just agreed that 3 sigma is the magical boundary for process control? Well, it all comes down to the Goldilocks principle. Think about it. If we set our boundaries at 2 sigma, they're way too tight. We'd get constant false alarms from perfectly normal, everyday variations. That causes operators to constantly tweak and tamper with a machine that was actually running just fine. But if we go the other way and set our limits at 4 sigma, they're way too loose. The process could undergo a massive real shift, and we wouldn't even notice until it was too late. So 3 sigma is the perfect economic compromise. It beautifully balances the cost of missing a real shift against the absolute headache of chasing false alarms. And finally, Section 5, Trusting the Measurement System, our final and maybe most important check. Here's the thing. All of these statistics we just talked about, the mean, the spread, those 3 sigma limits, they all rely on one massive assumption. The hard truth is you can never, ever control a process through a gauge you haven't qualified. First up, we have to look at resolution. This is simply the smallest increment your gauge can actually report. Your resolution must be well finer than your process variation. If your process fluctuates by tiny, tiny fractions of a milligram, but your scale only weighs in big, chunky 1 milligram steps, your data just collapses. It lumps together into blocky steps and effectively lies to you about your true spread. Next up is bias. Imagine you see a sudden jump in your data. Now, is it a real process shift where the tablets actually got heavier? Or is it gauge bias where the process is exactly identical, but your scale is suddenly reading 2 milligrams high? The scary part is, on paper, they look exactly the same. This scenario right here illustrates exactly why routine calibration against a known standard is absolutely non-negotiable. No exceptions. So, before you compute a single statistic, you've got to clear this strict checklist. Number 1, ensure your gauge has fine enough resolution. 2, calibrate it to remove any bias. 3, assess repeatability, meaning can the same person using the same exact gauge get the same answer twice? And 4, assess reproducibility. Can 2 different people get the same answer? If you fail literally any of these, your data is totally compromised. So, I'm going to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought to take back to your own operations. Is your data telling the truth about your process, or is it just hiding the flaws of your measurement system? Well, you now have the foundational statistical building blocks to go find out for sure. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope you feel ready to look at your process data in a whole new light. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you next time.